So for your lab assignment, exercise 1, you are going to create either one program or several programs. That is up to you, but you need to use a queue, and these are the requirements. Add 5 items, check to see if the queue contains a specific item and display a message, but do not remove the item from the queue, which means you have to use peek. Remove at least one item from the queue, count the items in the queue and display the count, and then print everything that's in your queue. For a stack, you also need to do a stack. Now, these can be in the same program or they can be in a different program. Lots and lots of examples in the lecture demo. I also did a sample program for you, and I put everything in the same program. And this PDF cannot be copied. So I want you guys to code your own and not copy my code. So you can see what I did is display a menu and ask, which one they want. And then you can see I've got different methods. They're all static methods, depending on which one they choose. And so for Q, I did some fun with colors, but you can see I decided to do this on trips. And so here I've got adding 5 trips. Okay, and then the number of trips in the queue, that would be 5. And then enter a trip to see if that is in the queue. So it's checking the queue and it indicates if it's found or not. Then I got you went on vacation and your first trip has been removed. So I dequeue it and then I print out the remaining trips. Okay, for stack, it is similar requirements. Okay, so if you look at the requirements for stack, add 5 items, check to see if the stack contains a specific item and display a message, remove at least one item, count the items in the stack, and display the count. Yep. You can see my other videos are done. Excuse me. All right, so let us take a look at stack. Let's see. So stack is last in, first out. A little different, kind of opposite processing of queue. So here I create my new stack, and this again is trips. And I got my little loop to enter a trip, and I push it on the stack. Right? Little different procedure than the queue, right? Because for the queue, when I put things in the queue, I have to enqueue them. And with the stack, I push them. Okay, and then the number of trips, that should be 5. Then we're checking for a trip. And so here I'm checking contains, indicating if it's in the stack or not. And then I remove the, actually it would be the last trip that was in my list is the first one out. Whereas in a queue, it's kind of the opposite. And then I print all of the trips that are remaining. Okay, so I think you guys are getting the hang of this, but if you look at the linked list requirements, they're similar. Add 5 items to a linked list. Linked lists are a little different. So you're going to retrieve and display the first node, retrieve and display the last node. You're going to add another item into the middle, and then you're going to remove a node from the list. It can be the first, the last, or a node with a specific value. Count the items in the list and display the count, and then print everything. Okay, so let's look at linked list. So for the linked list, I create my linked list. And again, it's going to be trips. Okay. And you guys can do whatever you want. This is just what I did, but you can do whatever kind of list you want. So here I am adding to my list. I'm just kind of adding to the end, printing out the number in the list. And then I am retrieving the first value that's in my list and displaying it. Then I'm retrieving the last value that's in the list and displaying it, because those are in the requirements. And then I'm actually finding a trip. Okay, so I'm creating this variable called trip where you're going to enter a trip you want to find. And then I use the find method and look for that in my linked list. And it will, retrieve a node if it finds it. Um, so if it did find the trip, the node will have something in it. Okay. And then I can enter a new trip before that because remember the requirement was to add to your linked list. You can add to the beginning, the end, or somewhere in between. So this is how you would add to somewhere in between. You have to find a node and then put something before or after it. Okay, so enter a new trip to add before, and then here is how I am adding it. I'm actually doing the read line at that node location. Otherwise, if they looked for something that wasn't there, obviously if it's not there, you can't add it before. So I display trip not found. And then I am removing a trip here, kind of the same process. So that trip or that, where is it? My trip variable up here, I just kind of reuse it. And so here I'm actually just looking for whatever trip. And as long as it doesn't equal null, it means it found it. And then I'm just removing it. Okay. Otherwise, I'm displaying an error message that the trip doesn't exist. Okay. And then I am iterating through that list and displaying what's left. But I think you guys are getting the hang of this. Just make sure that you've read the requirements and that you have applied them in the exercise. And you certainly can do more. If you want to use more of those methods that are in the collection, by all means, go ahead, but this is the minimum. So for dictionary, you're going to add 5 items. You're going to retrieve and display all the keys. Then you're going to retrieve and display all the values. And then you're going to retrieve and display both the keys and the values. You'll remove one item from the dictionary, and then you'll display a count. Okay, and if you look at the example, that's exactly what I'm doing. Hash set basically is used if you want unique values. That is what a hash set does. It also allows you to join two lists, to intersect lists. So you look for basically values that the two lists have in common. So there's a lot of kind of cool things you can do with hash set. So you're going to add 5 items to a hash set, and then you're going to create a similar one with 5 items. Then you will create a third one with 5 more items. 2 of those items should be the same as you have either in your first or your second list. You will use a command to combine the first and second object, and then you'll store the combined items in the first object. And then use a command to combine the first and the third, and store the combined items in the first object. And then you'll print out the contents. And anything else that you guys want to do, you are welcome to do. So here I've got something I call unique vacations, and I fill that in. Creating another dream vacation bucket list and filling that in. And Then I get to my third one and I fill that one in. Then I get into combining bucket lists and eliminating duplicates, which is what a hash set does. So you can see I've got my first list and I combine that with my second. Take my first list and combine it with my third. It will eliminate any duplicates. And then I go through and print out everything that I have in that new first list. Okay, so that is what you need to do for hash set. And then once you're done with that, and again, this can be one program or multiple. Um, I chose to do it in one just because I had a little theme going. And to me, it was just as easy to do it in one as it is to do it in five. And then for exercise 2, this was lambda expressions and statements. You're going to create a program that lets the user enter 2 double value numbers. You're going to create a lambda that adds the numbers. You'll create a lambda expression that multiplies the numbers. And you're going to create a lambda expression that compares the 2 numbers and returns the smaller value. Use each of those lambdas in a console.write line. And so I do have a link here to this example, and it is similar to this. I believe you are adding and multiplying and finding the smaller value. And you'll see that I have these write lines. You don't need to do a loop because you're not dealing with an array. Okay? So yours is even simpler. You will call the lambda, the variable storing the lambda, and you'll pass it 2 numbers, whatever 2 numbers that you read in. Okay, so it's similar to this, it's actually simpler. The last exercise deals with containment, and you had several examples in the lecture demo, and I'm going to have you do one that is similar to the simplest example, which is the pet and owner example, okay, where you have 2 different classes and you just take one object from like the pet and you put it into owner. Okay, but instead of pet and owner, you guys are going to create a business class, and your properties are going to be the name of the business, the type of the business, the address. Okay, those will be properties. And then you're going to have an auditor class. And the auditor class is going to have the name and the phone number of the auditor. And you will take the auditor class and you will create an auditor class object in your business class, the same way that we created a pet object in our owner class. Okay, and so you will create a display method that displays the business and the auditor information. And then in the main program, you need an auditor and a business object. And then you have to make sure that you have added the auditor to the business object. Okay. And so very, very similar to what we did with pet and owner. Okay, so that is the assignment.